Yeah, thank you, Anjali. I would like to divide my presentation into three aspects. One is the protest which started in Jantar Mantar from sometime in January this year to about 16th of April, when the report set up by the committee is supposed to have been given. Now, and the second, of course, is from the 23rd April onwards, when the protest restarted, up to sometime in May, when about a month had gone by and nothing had happened. And then, there was this candlelight march, which is the third section. And then what happened on the 28th of May? And what are the developments since then? Now, so far as the first aspect is concerned, namely when the protest started in January, it's not that, the wrestlers decided that let's go and have some kind of a protest in Jantar Mantar. Obviously, there would have been something prior to that. All right, because this sexual harassment is not something which started only in January. It started much earlier. They would have made complaints, but it appears that there is no internal complaints committee in the Wrestling Federation. So, which is contrary to the law, by the way, the Sexual Harassment Act. And because there was no place to whom they could make a complaint, it seems they either made a complaint to some persons who are officials in the Wrestling Federation. And it also appears that they made a complaint to the Ministry of Sports, which is in charge of the Wrestling Federation and other sports federations and organizations. Nothing seems to have happened, absolutely nothing, which is what drove them to come to Jantar Mantar and to go on some sort of a protest. Now, one of the things that was said against these wrestlers is, "Oh, why did you go to the streets?" Now, obviously, they had no option. There is no ICC, there is no internal complaints committee, so they could not go there. They seem to have gone to the Ministry of Sports, or at least to some persons in authority. There was no response, so they had no other option but to come to Jantar Mantar to protest. Now, while they were there, the protest started, I think, sometime on the 18th of January. And on 21st of January, they called off the protest because they were given an assurance that two committees will be set up. One committee will be set up with regard to the affairs of the Wrestling Federation, and the second committee will be set up to examine the allegations that they have made. Now, obviously, the allegations had been made, right? So to say that, oh, why did they come to the streets? They should have done this, they should have done that. To me, it makes no sense. Anyway, the oversight committee was constituted on the 23rd of January, and it was required to give its report within 1 month. It did not give the report within 1 month. Time was extended, and eventually on 16th of April, the report was given by the oversight committee. What are the contents of the oversight committee's report? Nobody knows, right? It's a big secret. All right. Now, why is it a big secret? I mean, there is something that has happened, and the only thing that can be assumed, as lawyers put it, you can draw an adverse presumption. If the report was in favor of the accused person, the person who is supposed to have sexually harassed the wrestlers, the first thing to do would be, make the report public. All right, delete the names and so on and so forth, redact it, and make the report public. So I think the first presumption is that the report is against the person in charge of the Wrestling Federation, the person against whom allegations have been made. So let's proceed on that basis. Otherwise, the whole thing, I think, would have just come to an end if he had been found not guilty, or if the wrestlers had been told, if the committee had found that the wrestlers are, making false allegations and so on. Then you come to the second stage. The wrestlers obviously came to know that the report has been submitted. It was not being made public. They said, make the report public. And the executive or the government or whoever is in charge, they said, no, 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 we're not going to make the report public. So this again drove them to come to Jantar Mantar, where they came on the 23rd of April to protest and say that, why are you not making the report public? Right? That is one. Second, they had made a complaint. Why is an FIR not being registered? That was the second grievance. So they came out with two grievances. One, make the report public. Two, register an FIR. Now, if the report was in favor of the accused and against the wrestlers, they would have said, listen, here is the report. And where is the question of registering an FIR? We're not going to register an FIR because there's nothing in the complaint that you have lodged. It's all false. But they did nothing. Now, this drove the wrestlers to approach the Supreme Court for an exercise of their fundamental rights under Article 32 of the Constitution of India, to say that, listen, here is a cognizable offense. Why is an FIR not being registered? The matter came up before the Supreme Court, I think on the 25th. Supreme Court issued notice to Delhi Police on the 28th. And the Delhi Police then comes out very magnanimously and says, oh, you know, we have received this complaint. Now we are going to register an FIR. I think the Supreme Court should have first of all asked them, why didn't you register an FIR much earlier? You know, what is the point of telling us today, after the matter is before us, that we are going to register an FIR? Anyway, the Supreme Court did not do that. And it was told to the Supreme Court that there is a fear of threat, a fear to the life of the wrestlers. I think an affidavit was also filed in a sealed cover to the Supreme Court to say that, listen, this is why, I assume, to say that this is why we think that there is a threat to our lives. The matter was then taken up by the Supreme Court on the 4th of May. And on the 4th of May, the Supreme Court was told that an FIR has been lodged. It was lodged on 28th of April, which means that there was some substance in the complaint. And the FIR dealt with three things, apart from, harassment. It talked about sexual harassment under section 374A. It talked about stalking, which is again a very serious offense under section 374D. And because there was a minor involved who had been sexually harassed, molested, a case under section 10 of the POCSO, Prevention of Child Sexual Abuse Act, was also registered. Now that section 10 is not just sexual assault, it is aggravated sexual assault. So you can imagine the seriousness of this. That's one thing. The second is that the Supreme Court said that these wrestlers should be given police protection, which means that the threat perception or the threat which they had indicated to the Supreme Court was perhaps real. Otherwise, the Supreme Court would not have said that, listen, give them police protection. So the whole thing indicates, number one, that the Delhi Police was going slow for reasons which I think are fairly obvious. Number two, that these wrestlers were under threat. And the Supreme Court accepted the fact that they were under threat. And that's why they said you give these wrestlers police protection. Now, before the hearing on the 4th of May, if you remember, on the 3rd of May and on the night of the 3rd of May, there was some sort of a scuffle that took place at Jantar Mantar, where these wrestlers said that some policemen or maybe some persons, whoever it is, they were drunk, they came and they tried to, manhandle them, and some sort of a ruckus took place. Which means that an incident did occur, which also I think the Supreme Court must have been aware of, because it seems to have come out in the newspapers. In any case, On the basis of the affidavit, the Supreme Court came to the conclusion that there was a threat. So in this background, I think the Supreme Court should not have said that, listen, if there is anything further, then you go to the High Court or you go to the jurisdictional magistrate. The Supreme Court should have said that we are convinced, number one, that you have delayed in lodging an FIR, which is something you should have done, particularly in a case of aggravated sexual assault. Second, there is a threat perception, and we think that these wrestlers must be given police protection. So we'd like to monitor the investigation so that things don't go wrong. Now, the Supreme Court has in the past monitored investigations, not with a view to see that, the person against whom the case has been filed is convicted. No. The Supreme Court has monitored investigations only to see that things don't go wrong. The investigating officer or the police do not go off at a tangent. Now, if there's some politically connected, well-connected person like you had in the Jain Hawala case in the 1990s, Supreme Court said, yeah, we'll monitor it, right? Because some big names are involved and, the whole investigation might get derailed. Or in some other matter, because of the nature of the case, because of the nature of the persons, the Supreme Court monitors the investigation only to see that it doesn't get derailed. I think there, the Supreme Court, in my view, did not fully appreciate the position and decided not to, monitor the investigation. I think they should have. All right. Then we come to the third section. When the wrestlers went back, they were continuing in Jantar Mantar. I don't know what kind of investigations were going on. But on 23rd of May, they took out a peaceful candlelight march in which it was pointed out that, listen, we've been here for 1 month. From 23rd of April, we've been here. 1 month has gone by. And what has happened? It's not something, which requires massive investigations and all that. And later on, it came on, police, talked to about 100 witnesses. What is there to talk to 100 witnesses? I mean, it's not that, there was a whole crowd that was watching the sexual harassment of these girls, including the minor, and so therefore you need eyewitnesses. Now the police says, we need video evidence, we need audio evidence. I mean, what's going on? I mean, these kind of things don't happen on the street, Sexual harassment of wrestlers. People don't do that on the street. Obviously, it is done behind closed doors. And what kind of evidence are you going to get? That's what the investigation is for. Otherwise, then why have an investigation? Here is all the material, prosecute the fellow and send him to jail. That's it. End of the matter. Why have an investigation? Anyway, then after this, 23rd May candlelight march, we had this really ugly scenes on the 28th of May when the wrestlers were manhandled. It's not that only they were manhandled, but criminal allegations were made against them, including of rioting. Right? And that complaint of rioting has not been withdrawn. Theoretically, therefore, these wrestlers are now accused persons accused of rioting. Okay, so somebody who came to Jantar Mantar, came to the Supreme Court as victims of crime, have now been told that, you are actually the criminals, right? You have done rioting, you've done, broken the law, section 144, this, that, and the other. Look at the, turn of events. Look at the somersault that has taken place. Now, from 28th May onwards, okay, then they were told that, listen, now you can't even come to Jantar Mantar. Okay, whatever bedding that you had over there, whatever tents that you had over there, everything is taken away. Okay, so now there's no internal complaints committee, so you can't complain to them. They probably went to the government, nothing has happened. They went to the police said, you can't come and protest over here. Now, where are they supposed to go? What are they supposed to do? Are they again supposed to go to court and say that, listen, this is what is happening to us? It's quite obvious, that the police is mixed up. They don't want the allegations to proceed. They don't want the investigation to proceed. Now we come to what has been happening in the recent past. What surprised me considerably was the Honorable Minister giving an assurance to the wrestlers when they said that we are going to throw our medals into the Ganga. And in fact, they actually went to throw the medals into the Ganga. They were told that, oh, you see, so the probe will be completed by 15th of June. All right, so don't do anything. How did the Honorable Minister come to know that it will be completed by the 15th of June? The only person who can answer that question, or the only person who can make that statement, is the investigating officer, nobody else. At best, the investigating officer can tell his superior, the Commissioner of Police, that, listen, I'm supposed to report to you. I will complete the investigation by 15th of June and I will file a charge sheet. Nobody else can do that. So therefore, there is something that is going on, behind the scenes. I remember, now, why is this serious? Well, this is serious because the Supreme Court has said in any number of judgments that nobody can interfere in investigations, not even the Supreme Court. That's why when the Supreme Court monitors the investigation, they don't interfere in the investigation. They just let the investigating officer do what he's supposed to do. But if he's doing something ridiculous, going off at a tangent, then they say, listen, we think you're going off at a tangent. So now what I remember is when this, scam was going on about the allotment of whole blocks. The CBI was asked to file an affidavit. The CBI prepared an affidavit and they showed it to the then Law Minister, Mr. Ashwini Kumar, who vetted it. Now, he had nothing to do with the investigation. The investigation was with the CBI. It was brought to the notice of the Supreme Court that the affidavit was vetted by the Law Minister. The Supreme Court came down pretty heavily on the Law Minister, and the Law Minister resigned. Why? Because through the process of vetting the affidavit, he had interfered in the investigation. Now here, it appears that there is something going on behind the scenes. Otherwise, how would somebody know that the probe is going to be over on the 15th? And why should somebody tell anybody else? Why should the investigating officer tell anybody that, listen, I'm going to complete it by the 15th? What business does anybody else have except perhaps the police commissioner? So I think this needs investigation. What is it that has been going on behind the scenes? Of course, nobody will investigate this, but it is something which I think is disconcerting, to say the least, keeping in mind the fact that the Law Minister had at one point of time to resign and as the Law Minister and the case pending in the Supreme Court, one could say that, listen, he's a Law Minister. Why can't he, have a look? And the matter is pending in the Supreme Court. But the Supreme Court said, no, you can't do it. Right? Okay. So one is, it appears, and it needs investigation, whether there is some interference in the investigation process. Then you have this minor. I think this minor was examined by the police in the presence of 4 women constables. This seems to have come out in the newspaper, I think today or yesterday, for about 4.5 or 5 hours till 9:30 p.m. Where was the need to interrogate her or to examine her or whatever they did for 4.5 or 5 hours? I mean, she's given a statement. That statement is in writing. That statement forms the FIR. What kind of investigation do you want? Okay, then this is an aspect of re-victimization. That you have said this, now prove what you have said. That is what re-victimization is all about. And the Supreme Court and all the courts actually have come down very heavily against re-victimization, where a woman is sent to the witness box and asked all kinds of questions. Supreme Court says you can't do it. You're re-victimizing the person. Now here with this interrogation going on for 4.5 or 5 hours, it is nothing short of re-victimization. It appears to me that the purpose of all this, now they say, oh, we want to examine some people or we want to get evidence from some foreign country, right? Because allegations were made that this thing happened in Kazakhstan or Kyrgyzstan or, some of these countries. We want information from there. First of all, I don't know whether they're going to get it by the 15th. That's the day after tomorrow. Okay, so the assurance has no meaning. And what information are these guys going to give? Was this happening in public? This sexual assault, stalking, was it happening in public? And you think those federations over there have got nothing better to do but to find out what is going on? I mean, this is ridiculous. Then they take one of the persons to the scene of crime, or the so-called scene of crime, to the office. Why? The scene of crime is the person. It is her bodily integrity which has been tampered with. She is the scene of crime. And she says, this is what has happened to me. And you say, no, I want to know where it has happened to you. Which place? What else is re-victimization? Where did it happen? How did it happen? When did it happen? Which part of your body did they touch? Can you please demonstrate? I mean, what is this going on? This is a clear case of re-victimization. Okay, then, now, the wrestlers have come out. They said that we are under pressure. It's fairly obvious with all these things that have been happening in the background that they're under pressure. The Supreme Court has said that there's a threat perception, give them police security. Obviously, they're under pressure. And now this minor has been, or at least her father who made the complaint, has been told to, say something or the other. God knows what he has said. It's not very clear what he has said. But why? Why should that happen? She made a statement under Section 164 before a magistrate. Why don't you go on the basis of that? And you need, people in foreign countries to tell you what is happening. So rather than investigate into the offense that has taken place, the investigation seems to be directed towards showing that the accused is innocent. And that all of you, all the wrestlers, 7, 8 of them, including the minor, are saying something false. Nothing has happened. That seems to be the purpose of the investigation. Investigations have to be unbiased. They have to be fair. Investigations cannot take place when persons are under threat. But all this is going on. And I'm sure Vrinda and Shahrukh will tell you that with this background, any defense lawyer can shred the case to pieces. Assuming the matter goes to court, with this background, any defense lawyer worth his or her salt will be able to say that, listen, there's something funny going on, and this person is either not guilty or is entitled to the benefit of doubt. And that's the end of the story. So we are now looking at something, a very strange situation, where it appears to me that what is going to happen is a foregone conclusion. There is talk about, why hasn't this person been arrested? Okay, first of all, it's a very serious offense, aggravated sexual assault. It's a very serious offense. It's not a minor offense. Number one. Number two, the person is powerful. That is pretty obvious. Otherwise, he would have been arrested a long time back. He's And he's going around making speeches, He's coming on TV and saying, I'm not done anything. I'll hang myself if something is proved against me. He was going to have some Mahapanchayat or something, God knows what. And they said, no, cancel it. So he is a very powerful person, very well connected. There is evidence to show that witnesses have been threatened, may not be by him, but by persons known to him, or some persons who are interested in threatening the witnesses, apparently on his behalf. Evidence is being tampered with. The very fact that this minor or her father has gone back on the statement to some extent is an indication that evidence is being tampered with. Flight risk, probably not. It's unlikely that he's going to run away. But then, as we have seen in the recent past, in the last couple of years, a person who doesn't even have a passport is arrested on the ground that he's a flight risk. Where is that person going to go if he doesn't even have a passport, right? And very highly respected persons, former ministers, have been arrested. They're not flight risks. So flight risk is, neither here nor there in a situation like this. So you have tampering of evidence, evident. You have, in a sense, suborning witnesses or threatening them at least. You have a very serious offense of aggravated sexual assault, apart from stalking and sexual harassment of not one person, but I think 6 or 7 persons. And who have come out openly, right? Normally, you say, oh, the identity of this person should not be known. Even in the Supreme Court, they were described as XYZ. But they have come on camera to say that this is what has happened to us. So you can imagine the extent to which they have been harassed. Okay, all these things, you have to put them together, not look at an incident in isolation. Did this happen in Kyrgyzstan? Oh, it did not happen in Kyrgyzstan. Did it happen in Indonesia? I don't know. Maybe it happened in Indonesia. That's not the way you investigate a crime. Groping, did it happen with the left hand? Did it happen with the right hand? Did it happen in the morning? Did it happen in the afternoon? This is not the way to go about it. This is something which can be seen at the trial if it is necessary. But what can I say on this? That's all.